Beneath everything pulsed another rhythm, the drums of the Atar. Boom, boom, boom. A beat that did not belong to any man on the field, but to something buried under the soil. The sky looked bruised, swollen with cloud. Only a thin sliver of moon bled silver across the hilltop. On that ridge stood the Atar war chief towering, wrapped in armor that swallowed light. Behind him dragged Nkume Onyi, the blade scraping stone like a beast clawing at a sealed grave. Women of Ugwu had whispered about that sword by low firelight. They said it had eaten kings. They said it kept voices inside its belly. They said it sang in the dark, in tongues older than wind. Tonight, it wanted a new voice. When Odo stepped fully into the open, the watchers inhaled as one body. Some whispered that the grove had consumed him. Others swore he had traded his soul for fire. But when the ember beneath his skin winked with each breath, the whisper changed soft as moth wings. He has changed. Across the field, the Atar ranks parted. The war chief stepped forward, dragging Nkume Onyi behind him. He did not grin in greeting. He smiled like a man opening a gift he had waited decades to unwrap. His voice reached Odo like stone grinding on stone. "The hunter who killed my sons. At last you stand before me." Odo said nothing. He needed no words. The land itself was listening. The air tightened. Old laws hummed awake, laws older than war. 2 champions, 1 blade. The clans stand aside. No volley, no drum, no chant. The duel itself would be the law. This is not just a fight. It is a law where one man's breath carries the fate of many. Odo reached for his bow, not for many arrows, but for one. An arrow dipped in the venom of the black viper of Ugwu, poison strong enough to still a heart in 3 breaths. Warriors crossed themselves quietly as he strung it. The war chief raised Nkume Onyi. The moon leaned away. The blade drank silver. The duel cracked open like lightning. The war chief moved first, prayer and power hurled into motion. Nkume Onyi carved the air. Where it struck grass, blades curled and died. Stone split. Steam hissed from the earth. Odo rolled, dust crowning him, and loosed the viper arrow. It buried deep into the chief's shoulder. Gasps tore from both camps. The chief dropped to one knee. 1 breath, 2, 3. He did not fall. He pulled the arrow free, examined it like a thorn in his sandal, and smiled slow, cold. "Your poison cannot kill a man who has swallowed the blade." Oh, Odo's ember burned brighter. The duel had only begun. When champions meet under old law, the world goes quiet so the gods may hear. Leaves froze mid-tremble. Mothers hid children in their wrappers. Elders pressed palms together and counted names. The war chief rose and advanced like weather itself. "Nkume." Onyi cut space open, shadow pooling around the blade like spilled ink. The poison burned in his wound an inconvenience, not a sentence. The blade feeds on memory. Kill with it, and your story becomes part of its song. Nkume Onyi swung again, black lightning drinking moonlight as it moved. The moon thinned, then vanished, sucked into the blade's dark throat. Night was not darker, it was hollowed. Odo knocked another arrow not to kill, but to remember. He thought of names, grandfathers, mothers, ancestors whose bones mapped the valley, of Nkem's hands, folded shoulder. This time the blade screamed. Not steel voices, a chorus of trapped men. Old women clutched necklaces. Children stared with empty mouths. Smoke curled from the blade in the shape of faces. Eyes closed. Lips whispering. Odo felt the whispers crawl across his skin. He understood then. Nkume Onyi was not merely a weapon. It was a vessel, a prison. Kill with it, and the killer traded rest for echo. The war chief advanced, methodical and terrible. The blade struck. The ground smoked. Odo countered. The venom did something strange. It stirred bitterness. Old wounds. The blade fed on memory and grew hungrier. Nkume Onyi flashed toward Odo's chest. He twisted. The edge whispered across his ribs, leaving a welt like a carved map. Blood and ember mingled. Heat sang in his veins. Odo did not fall. He drew from the grove's ember not magic that takes, but fire that remembers. He aimed for the place where a man holds his story and loosed an arrow carrying the names of Ugwu. The chief staggered. Sound tore from his throat. For a heartbeat, the spirits inside the blade wept or cheered. Then the war chief roared and charged. Steel met steel. Sparks burst like dying stars. From the ridge came the deep rhythm again. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. If a weapon kept your ancestors inside its blade, would you strike to end a war even if they never rested? The blade devoured the last of the moon. Darkness breathed. The war chief advanced with one purpose, to bind Odo inside the iron book of Nkume Onyi. Odo parried and spun, the duel turning into a language written with motion. Edge, guided by small spirits, Nanana ran. He reached the clearing and froze, heart stumbling at the sight of his father and the blade. The war chief lunged. Odo answered with a move he had not known he carried: step, twist, strike, aimed not at flesh but fate. The arrow struck the ground near the chief's foot. Thunder rolled. Balance broke. Odo surged forward. He drove his spear not to kill, but to split a story. Nkume Onyi trembled. Voices inside it cried, not quite lament, not quite triumph. For one breath, the sword forgot something. Odo pressed with every name he carried. Emberlight surged. For an instant, the blade reflected not the chief but the children of Ugwu. The war chief roared. The world tilted. But the blade would not fall. It reached beyond flesh and gripped at story itself. The air bent. Silence crushed the valley. The chief lifted the blade and spoke an old name into its edge. The syllables screamed across the valley. Odo staggered. Faces flashed Nkem, Kalunta, Izu. The blade pulled at him like a tide. 3 choices: become Echo, strike and lose himself, or remember. Odo chose remembering. He called the names of Ugwu and loosed an arrow that sought not death, but memory. It struck the guard. The blade shuddered. Reflections cracked. A sound poured out like a broken dam. Faces in the crowd wept. The war chief faltered. For one heartbeat, doubt touched his eyes. Then Nkume Onyi spat out a thin thread of moonlight bright as a remembered rope. It snapped and vanished. The blade healed, slow, terrible. A sword that eats moonlight can be wounded by memory. The world inhaled. Odo leaned on his bow, breath burning. Blood streaked ash across his skin. Nkume Onyi no longer hummed, it carried a fracture. The war chief laughed. Hollow. You damage what feeds me. Atar warriors surged behind him. Odo turned. Kalunta and Anana stood at his side, small, unbroken. Odo raised his voice not to shout war, but to name the living. Names rolled like weapons. Nkume Onyi's song cracked further. The Atar stalled. Then a scrap of steel fell from the blade. An old woman recognized the mark of a fallen king and screamed his name. Others joined. Names rang. The blade recoiled. Memory struck steel again and again. The war chief roared and struck. Odo met him not alone. Kalunta thrust his spear. Nanana hurled a stone guided by spirit hands. The blade slammed down. Odo answered. Sound exploded. The war chief dropped to one knee. Blood ribboned from his mouth. Nkume Onyi bent. Not broken. Changed. The blade is wounded, but wounds demand payment. Night bled slowly. Ba-bum, ba-bum. The drums softened. The war chief rose, clutching Nkume Onyi. Fear old and bitter flickered in his eyes. He sealed the blade with cold words. Wind snapped outward. He withdrew, not defeated, but wounded. Odo stood with his sons. The ember inside him softened into warmth. You fought like a son, he told Kalunta. I will learn more, Kalunta replied. Did it hurt you? Nanana asked. It tried, Odo said, but we carry our names too hard for a blade to keep. Ugwu sang, not war, but remembrance. Victory tasted of cost. Memory wounds iron, but both sides bleed. Ah, children of the fire. The night has thinned, but not ended. Nkume Onyi was struck, and the voices inside it stirred. Will the war chief return to stitch his blade whole? Will Odo stand when the greater storm comes? If this tale lit your ember, feed it. Like, share, subscribe, drop 1, strike or 2. Speak in the comments. The ancestors are watching. The moon holds its breath.